Okay, so let's start. And today we are going to attempt October-November 2022 paper 1-1. Let's start with question number 1. A student needs to measure 17.60 centimeter cube of hydrochloric acid. The student has access to the apparatus commonly found in a school laboratory. Which piece of equipment should be used to measure the 17.60 centimeter cube of hydrochloric acid? Okay, so we all know that hydrochloric acid is basically in its aqueous state. So if it's in aqueous state, so it clearly indicates that we cannot use gas syringe. So it would be wrong. The other thing, if you see the reading that we have to measure 17.60, right? Which means pipette also can't do this because pipette have a, if we talk about pipette, so pipette have a only one measurement in it. It is a accurate way, or this apparatus is used to measure the volume accurately, but it have only one mark on the whole pipette, and that mark normally help you to calculate only to measure only one reading only. So we cannot measure in decimal places in pipette. So pipette would be wrong. Now we are left with the two things, burette and measuring cylinder. Measuring cylinder, you have to remember that it is for measuring the volume, approximate volume. Okay, and burette is used to measure the accurate volume, and burette is further, have a scale in 0.1 centimeter cube is its least count. So C also goes wrong, and our correct answer would be an A. Is this understandable to everyone? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If anybody have any doubt, do ask. Okay. So now let's move to question number 2. When calcium carbonate is added to dilute hydrochloric acid. So if you recall the formulas of calcium carbonate, it's a metal carbonate having a formula of CaCO3, and normally it's in a solid state, and we are adding it to a dilute hydrochloric acid, which is HCl aqueous. A carbon dioxide gas is released. Okay, so a CO2 gas would be your product. 3 set of apparatuses are shown. Now, what the examiner is asking, which set of apparatus are suitable together with a stopwatch for following the rate of reaction?
Sir, 2 and 1.
1 and 2. Okay, why? Hassan?
फर्स्ट वाले में आप डिफरेंट चेंज इन मास से यूज कर सकते हो फिगर आउट करने के लिए कितने
Very good.
गिवन आउट है, और सेकंड में गैस सिरिंज है, और
But what about
तीसरे वाले में खुला हुआ है ऊपर से सिस्टम.
Yeah, very good. If you look at the third one, it is opened from here. If you see, so the gas that bubbles out, it is not necessary that all the gas moves from here and collected in the measuring cylinder. Instead, the gas can move in this region as well. So third one is going to be the wrong one. Okay. And we can do use the set of apparatus 1, because due to the cotton wool, the gas is released gradually, and we will observe a decrease in the mass balance. So we can record the change or the decrease in the mass balance over a unit time to find, or over our intervals of time to find the rate. In the same way, when we look at the experiment, the set of apparatus 2, we see that there, if you see here, we have a stopper. So no gas can be escaped from over here. All the gas would be going in the gas syringe, and we are able to record the volume in the gas syringe at equal intervals to measure the rate. So second would also be, the correct one. So on the basis of that, our A, C, and D options goes wrong, and the correct answer is B. Is this understandable to everyone? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, question number 3. Some substances may be separated using paper chromatography. The diagram shows the results of running two mixtures in a suitable solvent. Okay. So one mixture is giving me two components A and D, and the other mixture is giving me two components B and C. Okay. Which spot has a RF value of 0.37? Okay. So how you would do that? You would do that by, with a ruler or with a scale, and you would measure this distance, and then from here you would measure the distance till uh, from the baseline till the middle of each spot, and then you divide the distance traveled by the spot with the total distance, and it will help you to identify which would be a correct answer and which would have a 0.37 value. So if we look at this, we can easily figure out it is almost the half. And if the value is 0.37, which means if RF value is 0.37, which indicate us that it is 0.37 over 1. So which means that this distance traveled by the solvent, that is the solvent front, is actually the 1. So if it's the 1, then 0.37 would be lower than its half, which means that my C and D options given here are wrong. Now I am left with A and B. And if you look at A and B, A is almost half of the half distance, the line I have drawn over here, which further indicating that A would be, in this case, uh, it is 0.25. So for A, if you calculate the RF value, it would be 0.25 over 1. So this Am I audible to everyone? Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay, now tell me, is this question is clear to everyone or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Okay.
what is chromatography?
Chromatography is a separating technique used to, separate the mixture of color dyes or mixture of the food coloring compounds. You didn't study chromatography earlier?
No.
Okay. So in MCQs, the chromatography questions are like that. For example, here they have asked you to find which spot have a RF value of 0.37. So RF value is actually measured by distance which is traveled by spot divided by distance traveled by solvent. So this is the distance that is traveled by solvent. So you can measure it by the ruler, and then you can measure the distance of each spot from here. For example, for A, you would measure this distance. For D, you would measure this distance. For C, you would measure this distance. For B, you would measure this distance. Then you put the values in this expression, and for whichever spot you would get the value of 0.37, that would be your correct answer. Is this understandable?
Yes.
Okay. So in this case, it is for B 0.37. Okay. Now, question number 4. Petroleum crude oil is separated into useful fractions by fractional distillation. Okay. The position at which fraction X and Y are collected from the fractionating column are shown. Okay. Which statement is correct? One thing, if you recall, the fractions which are, being collected at the top have the lowest boiling point, and as we are getting down, the boiling points are getting higher and higher, and the one which is collected at the bottom have the highest boiling point. Okay, so the first statement say, so it means that if they have a lowest boiling point, so it means that the temperature would be low at the top of the fractionating column and the temperature would be high at the bottom of the fractionating column. Is this understandable to everyone?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, so the first statement says the temperature increases up the column. So we have observed that up the column temperature gets lower, which means statement A is wrong. Is this understandable?
Yes.
Okay. Now, B statement, X condenses at a lower temperature than Y. So is this a statement is correct or wrong? If
Yes.
its boiling point is lower and its boiling point is higher, so it means that the boiling point is same for the condensation as well. If there is a vapors and we lowers the boiling temperature, then as its boiling point reaches, the vapors start converting into liquid, they start condenses. So if the boiling point of the X is lower, which clearly indicates that X also going to condenses at lower temperature. So it is the correct statement. But if you find the correct statement earlier, you have to make sure that the rest of the statements are exactly wrong or not. So the C statement says that X has a higher boiling point than Y. And as we have decided that the higher temperature is below, so it means Y must have a higher boiling point and X must have a lower boiling point than Y. So it means C statement is wrong. Is this understandable to everyone? Yes. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
X has
sir.
a longer chain molecules than Y. So if you recall, the one having the lowest boiling point are smaller molecules or the smallest molecules. And the one having the highest boiling point have are actually larger molecules. So if these are the larger molecules, so it means that the molecules in Y would be are actually larger and the molecules in fraction X would be smaller. So D also goes wrong and it clearly indicates that our B option is correct. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Now, next question. Compound X is a crystalline solid at room temperature and pressure. An aqueous solution of X is tested as shown. Okay. Test. Acidify with dilute nitric acid, then add aqueous barium nitrate and no visible changes seen. So what this means? What we can conclude from this test? Yes, can anyone answer it? Yes, Abdullah, Hassan, Fahad. Yes, who will answer me this?
Sir, would it be zinc? Zinc chloride?
Why?
Because of the step of the cations which we learned.
How could you justify that it's a zinc chloride or zinc? It's not a zinc nitrate or zinc calcium nitrate. Okay. For this, uh, one minute. See, here you have the tests. And if you see, isn't it the test that they have written you over there that acidify with dilute nitric acid and then aqueous barium nitride, the observation would be white precipitate, and when we have a sulfate in it, right? When there is a sulfate in it, then on adding dilute nitric acid followed by the addition of barium nitrate, white precipitates are formed. But in the question, if you see, uh, there is no visible change. which helps me to identify there must be no sulfate ion. Sulfate is not present. Is this understandable to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And if sulfate is not present, then we clearly make this one wrong because it contains a sulfate. Now we are left with A, C, and D. Okay. In A, you see that there is a ammonium ion, and aqueous ammonia doesn't use to test ammonium ion, which clearly indicates that A is also wrong because you can see over here that C. These are the test of cations. Aqueous ammonia and C, in case of ammonium ion, there is nothing. So aqueous ammonia doesn't use to test ammonium ion. So that's why A also goes wrong. Now, look again. If you see over here, they are saying that aqueous ammonia, white precipitates which are soluble in excess, right? On adding aqueous ammonia, what is the result? White precipitates are observed which are soluble in excess, which means now we have to figure it out that whether it's a calcium or a zinc. But
Sir, zinc
in,
होएगा.
yeah, in this case, the zinc is the correct answer because calcium doesn't shows the white precipitate with ammonia. See over here, with calcium, no precipitate or very slight precipitate with aqueous ammonia. Now have a look for zinc. White precipitate soluble in excess giving a colorless solution, and that same thing is actually the same information is provided over there that on adding aqueous ammonia, this would seen, and if this would seen that white precipitates are formed and they dissolved in the excess of ammonia, so it clearly indicates that the solution contains zinc 2 positive ion. So from here we can conclude that our correct answer is D. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have to, everyone, you have to remember these, cations, anions tests, and these tests for gases and the flame test that they can be asked in the paper. Okay. Now, let's move to the question number 6. When aqueous sodium hydroxide is added to a solution, a white precipitate forms, which dissolve when excess sodium hydroxide is added. Which ion could be present in this? So, remember we are adding sodium hydroxide, right? And on adding sodium hydroxide, we cannot identify sodium because we are putting sodium by ourselves. So D is clearly wrong. Now we are left with A, B, and C. So if you look in the test again, on adding sodium hydroxide, copper gives you which color precipitates? Light blue precipitates, right? So it clearly indicates that C is also wrong. Now we are left with aluminium and calcium. Look at again over here. With aluminium, white precipitates are formed which are soluble in excess. With calcium, white precipitates are formed which are insoluble in excess. So here we are getting white precipitates which dissolves when excess sodium hydroxide is added, which clearly means that B, calcium, is wrong, because in case of a calcium, no precipitates dissolves again to give you a colorless solution, but the precipitates stay undissolved in excess of sodium hydroxide. So our correct answer is A in this case. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
if anybody has any doubt, do ask. Okay, now question number 7. Just give me 2 minutes, please. These 2 minutes. Okay. Question number 7. Why does a balloon full of helium gas becomes smaller as the temperature changes from 30 degrees Celsius to 10 degrees Celsius? Okay, so what would happen when the temperature falls? Yes, can anyone explain? If you recall, on decreasing,
Sir, the pressure reduces.
very good, on decreasing the temperature, the pressure reduces and the movement goes slow, right? So the gas condenses to a liquid, so takes up less space. No, this couldn't be the answer because it's not the boiling point of the gas. If the temperature gets lower than the boiling point of the gas, then it condenses, otherwise it doesn't condense. So A is wrong. The gas particles become smaller at lower temperature. How is this possible? The particle doesn't change its size. So B is wrong as well. The gas particles diffuses through the balloon and escape at lower temperature. The movement gets slower. So isn't this is not possible that the molecules get diffused through the balloon. The gas particles move more slowly, so reducing the pressure. Yes, this is possible because when they start to move slowly, so their collision with the walls of the balloon would be, the frequency of that collision would get slower, and as a result, it decreases. The particles come closer to each other. They are start exerting a lesser pressure, which leads to a decrease in the size of the balloon. So our correct answer would be D. Is this understandable to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Now, question number 8. The diagram of an ion is shown. Here we have a positive charge, which means it's a cation, and cation have always more protons than electrons. What can be deduced about the number of protons in this ion? Okay, so we can easily figure out that how many electrons it have. If you see, one in the first shell, oh sorry, two in the first shell and 8 in the second shell. So it have a 10 electrons, which means 10 negative charges. The whole charge on the molecule on the ion is a positive one, which clearly means that it have a only 9, sorry, it have a 11 protons, because if you add 10 negative charges and positive 11 charges, the charge you would get +1, and that +1 charge is on that ion. So our correct answer would be C in this case. Is this clear? And
Yes.
A, B, and D are wrong. If anybody have any doubt, do ask. Okay, now question number 9. The circuit diagram shows an experiment using a rod of copper and rod of graphite. Okay. When the switch is closed, the bulb is light. The bulb lights because an electric current flows through the copper and the graphite. Which particles move through these two solids? Both are solids. So remember, in solid, only electrons can move, no ions can move. So in A, they are saying copper ion is moving, so A goes wrong. In B, they don't show that the ions are moving, only electrons are moving, so B can be a correct answer.
Yes, B is the correct answer.
Yes. Let's look at C, the copper ions, so again goes wrong. And in D, they says that the carbon ions are moving, so D is also wrong. So our correct answer will be B. Is this understandable?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Now question number 10. Which material has the highest melting point? Yes.
So
So
fluoride.
very good. If you recall, ammonia is a gas, CH4 is a gas, it's a solid, and it's a liquid. So by the help of the state, we clearly identify that the one which is solid at room temperature can have the highest melting point. So C is our correct answer. Is this understandable to everyone?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Now question number 11.
sir. B.
1 minute. For 11, which statement
Yes.
okay, let me read. Which statement describes ionic bond? Okay. Ionic bond is between ions, and ions are oppositely charged ions. Okay. So the lattice of ions in a sea of electrons, completely wrong. It's for a metallic bond. Electrostatic attraction between oppositely charged ions. Yes, this can be a correct answer. The sharing of electron, no, completely wrong. It's for covalent. The transfer of electron from atom of a non-metal to the atom of a metal, that is wrong. Normally metal loses its electron, so D is also wrong. Yes, very good, Hassan. So the correct answer is B. Is this understandable to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Now, question number 12. The diagram shows how covalent bonds in an organic compound. Shows the covalent bonds in an organic compound. Okay. The total number of electrons in one molecule of compound is X. And the total number of electrons in the bonds in one molecule of compound is Y. Which number correctly complete the gaps X and Y? Okay. So if you look at a carbon, carbon is in group 4, but carbon have a 6 electrons. And here we have a 2 carbons, which means 6 times 2. So we have a 12 electrons. And there are how many hydrogens? There are 6 hydrogens, and each hydrogen have a 1 electron. So 1 times 6, so 6 electrons over here. So 12 plus 6 gives me 18 electrons. So the value of X would be 18, and due to this, I can mark A and B wrong. Is this understandable?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the total number of electrons in the bonds in one molecule of this compound. So see, count how many single bonds are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 bonds, and each bond have 2 electrons. So 7 times 2 electrons would give you 14 electrons. So the value of Y would be 14, which makes C wrong, and our D option is correct. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now question number 13. Which contains the greatest mass of oxygen? Okay. 0.2 moles of okay. So the easiest way of identifying the greatest mass of oxygen, the one having the greatest mole of oxygen in it. The one having the greatest mole of oxygen in it have a greatest mass as well. So they are saying 0.2 moles of aluminum nitrate. If you look how many oxygen are there, 6 oxygen are there. So 6 times 0.2 gives me 1.2 moles of oxygen. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes.
No, sorry. There are 9 oxygens, right? 3 times 3. So 9 times 0.2 gives me 1.8 moles of oxygen, right? If you see over here, we have a 4 oxygens and there are 0.3 moles. So 4 times 0.3 gives me 1.2 moles of oxygen in this case. Then we have a 3 oxygens and it's 0.4 mole. So 3 times 0.4 gives me 1.2 mole of oxygen. So both have a same value. So it means neither B nor C can be an answer. So we can mark B and C wrong. Now we are left with a D. 0.5 moles of magnesium carbonate. So it have a 3 oxygens in it. So 3 times 0.5 would give me 1.5 moles of oxygen. So the greatest oxygen is in A. So A must have a greatest mass of oxygen. So A would be our correct answer. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, Hassan.
Yes.
Okay. Now, question number 14. Compound X has a composition by mass of 63.6% nitrogen and 36.4% oxygen. What is the empirical formula of X? Okay, so if we work on nitrogen and oxygen, 63.6 is to 36.4. The relative atomic mass of nitrogen is 14 and the relative atomic mass of oxygen is 16. So can any one of you divide and tell me the answer? Yes.
हाइड्रोजन का 4.54 है और ऑक्सीजन का 2.2
4.54 and oxygen is
2.275.
2.275. So the oxygen have the lowest value, so we divide both with 2.275. And I think here you will be getting 1 and here you will be getting 2, which indicates that your correct answer is this one. So B, C, and D goes wrong and A is your correct answer. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, question number 15. The table gives the relative formula mass of 4 compounds and the mass of each compound present in 1 dm cube of solution. Which solution has the highest concentration in mole per dm cube? Okay. So we have to find the moles because this is, if you see, all of these are actually gram per dm cube. So we have to convert it into mole per dm cube by just dividing them by their MR. And if we divide them by their MR, then we get the moles, and the one which having a greatest mole have the greatest concentration. Is this understandable? Is this explanation is understandable or not?
Okay.
Yes,
Sir, but we
Hassan, is
can
it?
use the formula of like gram dm cube as well instead of converting them.
So which formula you would use?
I'm talking about the gram over dm cube formula.
That is already there. See, they said that mass of a compound in 1 dm cube of a solution. So it means it is actually gram per dm cube.
Okay.
Okay, so we have to convert it into mole. And how we would do it? We would convert into moles by just dividing them with their MR, and their MR are provided over here. So I have to divide it by 36.5. I have to divide it by 98. I have to divide it by 56, and I have to divide it by 40. Can any one of you tell me the answers? For the first one, is it 0.1?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For the second one, it is also 0.1.
Yes.
For the third one,
0.05.
is it 0.05? And for the fourth one, it's 1 point something, I suppose.
0.15. 0.15.
0.15. So C, A, B, and C goes wrong, and D is my correct answer. Is this understandable?
Yes.
Sir.
Okay. Now, question number 16. Which sample contains the most atoms? Okay, so for the most atoms, first we have to look at their formulas to figure out how many atoms each substance have. It's a H2O, so it have a 3 atoms. Here we have a carbon dioxide, it also have a 3 atoms. Here we have a methane, which have a 4 atoms, and here we have a hydrogen chloride, which have a 2 atoms. Right now, we have to now times it their moles to identify which one exactly have a most atoms, because these are the number of atoms that I have figured out right now is for one molecule of these compounds. So 3 times 0.5, 3 times 1, 4 times 1.
Sir, C will be the answer because it have the most atoms.
Yeah, it have the most atom, and it's 5, sorry, and it's 2 times 2. So C, here you would get 1.5, here you would get 3, here you would get 5, and here you would get 4. So C is the correct answer. A, B, and D are wrong ones. Is it understandable?
Yes.
Yes, yes, Hassan, is it clear to you as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now question number 17. The diagrams show the structure of ethene and propene. Okay. Which statement about equal volumes of ethene gas and propene gas at RTP is correct? Okay. They contain equal number of atoms. Is this correct?
No.
No,
sir.
because very good. They give equal volumes of carbon dioxide when they burn completely in oxygen. Is this correct?
No.
Yeah, no, because ethene would give you 2 moles of carbon dioxide and propene would give you 3 moles of carbon dioxide, because each molecule of our propene have a 3 atoms and each molecule of our ethene have a 2 atoms. So B is also wrong. Is it clear to you, Aisha?
Yes, sir.
They give equal masses of ethane and propane when reacted with hydrogen. Is this
No,
clear?
this is wrong as well.
This is
C1.
well. Yeah, good. They react with equal masses of B. So it is the correct answer. And why is it a correct answer? Because the reason is that with bromine, their double bond is going to react, and they are talking about the mass of bromine. So if they have a equal volumes of both the gas, which means both the gases have a equal number of moles, and if they have a equal number of moles, so they are going to react with equal amount of bromine, and if there is a equal amount of a bromine, then the mass of the bromine would be equal for both the reactions. Is it understandable?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now question number 18. Aqueous copper 2 sulfate is electrolyzed using copper electrodes. The current is constant and anode is weighed at regular intervals. Which graph is obtained when the mass of anode is plotted against the time? So anode is the one which undergo oxidation. So the anode normally dissolves. Okay. What happened to the anode in these cases? The anode dissolves. So if the anode dissolves, then the mass of the anode would continue to decrease. So B and D are
So
the
that
wrong ones.
makes C would
Yeah,
be the correct.
makes C, because A is also wrong. It doesn't, like decrease very rapidly. It decreases gradually. So C is the correct answer. Is this understandable to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Question number 19. Concentrated aqueous sodium chloride is electrolyzed using inert electrodes. Which row shows what happens in this electrolysis and why it happens? Yes, can anyone of you identify the correct answer? It's concentrated. And in case of a concentrated, we have a sodium ions, chloride ions, hydrogen ions, and hydroxide ions. So in case of a concentrated, chloride ion would undergo, and as sodium is there, so instead of sodium, hydrogen being less reactive and below in the reactivity series, go at cathode, and chloride would go at anode. So it means change occurring, oxygen is discharged at anode. So this is wrong. The pH of the electrolyte increases. Yes. Is B is correct or wrong?
Sir, it can be correct.
Yeah, because hydrogen ion is actually found getting reduced at cathode and forming a hydrogen gas. So solution would have a relatively higher concentration of hydroxide ions. So if the hydroxide ions concentration relatively increases, which leads to increase in the pH. So it is correct. The electrolysis in aqueous solution involves the discharge of hydrogen ions. Yes, and that's what I have explained you. So the explanation is also correct. So it means our B option is the correct one. Let's look at the C. Solid sodium is discharged at cathode, completely wrong. The product stays the same if the aqueous sodium chloride is displaced by molten sodium chloride. No. If there is a molten sodium chloride, then we are getting the chlorine gas and the sodium metal instead of a hydrogen gas. So D is also wrong. Is this understandable?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Now question number 20. The energy profile diagram for both the catalyzed and uncatalyzed reaction between nitrogen and hydrogen in the Haber process is shown. What is the activation energy for the formation of ammonia in the presence of a catalyst? A, B, C, and D. Okay, so remember, activation energy is the energy which is from the reactant to the highest point. So it means they are asking for the formation of ammonia. So it means these are my reactant and this is my product. So this makes D wrong, because D can be the activation energy for the reverse reaction when ammonia is decomposing into nitrogen and hydrogen. Okay, but here nitrogen and hydrogen are reacting. B is wrong because B is the enthalpy change. Now we are left with the C and A. And they ask you in the presence of a catalyst, so it means C is wrong, correct, and A is wrong because A is for the uncatalyzed reaction. So C is my correct answer. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think for today we will keep the class over here, and tomorrow we can continue from question number 21. What do you say?
Okay.
And tomorrow we will do a
Okay.
class at 7:30 p.m. inshallah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Allah Hafiz.